All right. Howdy there, and welcome to another episode of Reading with Drew. We are currently reading Perloo the Bold by AVI, or Avi, however you pronounce it. And we are currently on chapter 12. Chef Fergink decides. So I think that he's going to help him. He's going to help him escape. Because he liked Jolene. So I think he doesn't like Berwig. We know that. He said it. So, but where they escape to, I don't know. Let's find out. Here we go. Chapter 12. Though Perloo knew they were not in the least bit guilty, other than not telling the chef the truth before he stood before him with his head bowed. For his part, Chef Fergink, massive arms folded over his chest, ears twitching, nose quivering, rocked back and forth on his lumpy heels. Lucabara, he said, growling like a bear. I've known you a while. I thought you honest. I want the truth now. Lucabara tipped her left ear. There's no truth to the proclamation you just heard, she said. Are you saying that Rancher Jolene is alive? Fergink demanded, flexing his arm muscles. That part is true. She did die. And did you, her most loyal assistant, a friend, have anything to do with her death? The chef's look was ferocious. Lucabara stood flat upon her long feet and returned his gaze with steady eyes. She died of old age and infirmities, she said. The chief contemplated Lucabara as if he were studying an opinion he wanted to peel. From time to time, his eyes shifted to Perloo. Doesn't matter how she died, Fergink said. Berwick is the new grantor. That's bad news, but it's the law. Fergink, Lucabara said. She could proclaim someone else to be grantor. Who? Perloo. Perloo? The chief exclaimed, truly surprised. But that's the name of the murderer. The one they're looking for. Nothing but cottonwood seed, Lucabara said. Perloo is the new grantor, and he's standing right before you. Taken aback, Chief Fergink looked at Perloo with skepticism. Are you saying that this silly-looking fat fellow is... He shook his head. I need some explanation. Jolene didn't trust Berwig, Lucabara began. She thought he would become a dictator, and she was right. You heard it for yourself. The first thing he did was suspend tribal freedoms. Fergink grinned and nodded grimly. I wasn't pleased. That's why Jolene chose someone else. She wanted someone who would maintain and expand Montmer freedoms. She could do that legally? He asked. Yes. Prove it. Lucabara turned to Perloo. Well, Perloo began. It was a long time ago, the Ram year, the year Urtag the Early died, on the field of battle during the Second Montmer Felbart War. Just before dying, he chose one of his warriors to become grantor, Wisemark the Wise. Years later, Kobolink the Generous was chosen grantor because it was a time of challenge, a famine, and she was considered the cleverest of the tribe after Pilwit the Dim abdicated. Then, in the Antelope year, there was Werluck the Wobbly, who... Stop! Fergin cried. I can't stand history, so I don't even know if what you're saying is true. If Perloo says so, it's true, Lucabara said. Jolene said he knew more of our history than anyone. The chef shook his head. Berwig's a lout, he said. A swaggerer. Everybody knows that, except they say the warriors care for him. Then there's that Sineas. But look here, if Berwig is grantor, according to Perloo, Lucabara said, tribal law says the grantor has the right to choose. Is there any proof beyond what you say? Fergink demanded. Lucabara removed Jolene's torn proclamation from her smock. Here, she offered. Fergink took the bark bit, studied it, then handed it back. It makes no sense. Berwick ripped it, Lucabara explained. He has the other half. Put the pieces together and you'll see. It proclaims Perloo grantor. You put it together, the chef returned sourly. Then I'll read it. That's exactly what we intend to do, Lucabara said. But first we have to get free of the burrow. Fergink, there's a way out just beyond the kitchen. Will you let us get to it? She took a hop toward the door. Fergink, his bulging arms crossed over his chest, stood his place and continued to stare at the two. You know that Berwick will make a ghastly granter, Lucabara pressed. You said so yourself. And is this baggy-eyed, scruffy-whiskered, pot-bellied, weak-kneed fellow going to be any better? Fergink said with a contemptuous nod toward Perloo. Look at his legs, dandelion stalks. Perloo's nose turned red. Jelaine thought he would do, Lucabara replied, though not with a great deal of conviction. And if you escape, Fergink asked Perloo, what will you do? That is, if you really are Granter. Perloo, uncomfortable beneath Fergink's fierce gaze, turned to Lucabara. Her look was just as skeptical. Actually, Perloo mumbled, if I am free, I suppose I'll try. I mean, I'll get rid of Berwick. Restore our freedoms, I guess. You guess? Fergink said sarcastically. How? Perloo appealed to Lucabara with pleading eyes. She was not about to help. Perloo ruffled his whiskers, then rubbed his paws. I'm not certain, he admitted, but I promise I'll try. There was a long moment of silence. Finally, Fergink said, That's not much, he said, but I have some prebe to make. Over there, he said, gesturing toward the far end of the room. That's all I've got to say. With that, he hopped to the far side of the room and, with his back toward Lucabara and Perloo, began to pound some grain and angry wax of a maple stick. Go, Lucabara whispered to Perloo. The two bounded out of the kitchen and hopped down a short hall, then took an immediate left. When they reached the large chest Lucabara had mentioned, they pushed it to one side, exposing a door. Lucabara pulled it open. This time, as she had promised, it led to the outside world. She hopped forward. Perloo hesitated. If he left the burrow, his life would change forever. If he stayed, the likelihood would that he would be killed. Are you afraid? Lucabara called. Of course I am, Perloo replied. I'd be a fool if I wasn't. Saying what he felt seemed to give him just enough courage to follow Lucabara out of the burrow and into the storm. Yeah, I knew it. I knew he'd help. I knew it. I mean, you already did in the last chapter. So, but of course, he wants no part of it, which makes sense. And I mean, that was a quick chapter. I almost want to read another one, but we're going to stop it short, and I will do another one on the next video, on the next one. But good quick chapter. Basically, just his opinion on the matter, giving him a little more dialogue, and now they're free. They escaped. So the next chapter on Rasquitch Mountain, chapter 13. Let's do it. On the next, no, just kidding. Okay, next time, chapter 13.